Hey there, guys. So, answering your questions, I received one about linear progression and how I go about using it, as well as an example for the online coaching clients that I have. So, for me, a lot of the time, people want to get bigger, stronger, healthier, and the rest of it. I'm going to use the bench press as an example, as it's just easier and the numbers aren't as big. A lot of people, they try and chase the 2 plates and then 3 plates for bench press. Most of the time it's the 3 plates. So what I try and do is I try and get the maths to add up to 140 kilos, or for you guys 315 pounds, for, a single. Now the maths basically says whatever you can get for tens, you add a third. So long story short, I just try and first of all aim to bring the individual up to 4 sets of 10 at 100 kilos, aka 2 plates a side. That in theory gives me 133 for a single, but because I've got 4 working sets, it's going to be a little bit higher just because they're going to have a few reps in reserve, especially on that first set. From there, with the linear progression, I just up the weight and I try and keep the maths equaling basically the same. So then, 8s I would add, a quarter. 5s I add 14%, and 3s I add about 8%. As I'm going up in those weight jumps, when I take it up to the 8s, add the weight and drop the reps down to 8s. Make sure the individual can hit the sets and reps at that particular weight, and then I might run another week where I still keep it at 8s, but I add 2.5 kilos, and that way I'm slowly bridging the gap between that 133 and 140. Same deal then when I drop the weights to 6s, that's 18%. So then, same deal again. Make sure that they get used to holding the load, the bar moves well, and then I will add another 2.5 kilos somewhere in there. They might have to run it for 2-3 weeks, but at the same time I'm looking at their assistant exercises, like just on the sheet, but the primary exercise being the bench press, and just see how that moves. And sometimes, if they're struggling at lockout, I'll prescribe more, tricep and shoulder work. If they're weak off the chest, I'll prescribe more pauses or, Larsen press. Everything comes down to the individual. Then from 6s, you go to 5s, again, linear progression, and then I just try and make the maths add up to that 3 plates. Once I'm sort of at the 5s, I don't need to throw in any more additional weeks of adding a 2.5 kilo jump, because after 5s, I've gone 10s, 8s, 6s, 5s. Sometimes 5s I might have to just add 2.5 kilos in at the start, just depends. But I've brought their base up to the 140, in terms of a theoretical 1RM. Then from 5s I drop it down to 3s, and I just keep the maths on point. Shifting weights, the rep speed between doing 10s and 3s, the bar moves a fair bit slower. Like, you can't control heavy weight at the same speed that you're going to, move a light weight. When it gets heavy, most people get hesitant. It's not natural to lower something heavy down to your chest really quickly. It doesn't feel right. And that's why I like going for the buffer of, 4 working sets hitting the theoretical end goal. And that's just how I progress the weights from, 2 plates up to 3 plates in the form of linear progression. Now, in amongst that, you get people that don't fit the mold, and, that doesn't work well for them, and they need a few extra, pauses or breaks along the way to bring up that additional weight to keep that linear progression in terms of weight ticking along. It may not be a 2.5 kilo jump, it just might be 1.25, and then the next week another 1.25. Some people, their shoulders don't really like bench press, so they scale the volume back, and we work with more of the, paused bench. We might work more with some rack holds, might do some more tricep stuff, and just general shoulder health, in order to keep their shoulders healthy so that they can bench press. At the end of the day, bench press is just one lift. You've got your squats, you've got your deads. Some people prefer, especially if they're in strongman, log press. Other people, it's Atlas stones. It just comes down to what movement I'm trying to help that individual, work through. Squats, this method works quite well. At the same time with squats, you've got your body weight in the equation. So, if someone hits, say, 180 kilos for a set of 10, you add a third, okay, that gives them 240 for a single, but the reality is they've got their body weight in the equation, so therefore their 1RM is generally going to be a fair bit higher than that 240 mark. So, it comes down to factoring things in like that. Pull-ups are another example where you've got your whole body weight in the equation. But anything small, like where it's only your arms moving as opposed to the rest of your body, you can get away with just using that as a general blueprint for success. Might as well touch on it now. The backdrop for this was training on Friday. Thursday I had a rubbish session, just nothing felt right, so it's like, nah, you know what, Friday I'm just going to do my overhead work and then go back to work. So that's basically what I did, and it moved well, had no issues whatsoever. The other question I got was about RPE and reps in reserve. I use RPE with my online clients in conjunction with, and that's the biggest part, in conjunction with the videos that they send back of them lifting and how the bar actually moved. If someone sends it back to me and they said it was only a 7, but I can see that they're grinding their reps out, I just ignore what they've put down for RPE. I know that they don't quite understand it. They're just saying 7, when the reality is it looks like a 9.5 because they're only just getting the reps. Alternatively, you'll get other people that will say, it's a 9 or a 9.5, yet all the reps moved really smoothly, and they had no, problems completing their sets and reps. So, if you're an advanced lifter or someone that really does know their body well, hitting your last set at about a RPE 9 to 9.5 is great. You don't want your first set to be, a 9.5. It means you're going to be in for a very heavy session. Your form's probably going to break down on the other sets, and it's just not a smart way to train in general. Having said that, just 1 or 2 sets at that high RPE towards the end is ideal because, you're really pushing. Having a rep in reserve is generally a good idea, especially if you've got assistance exercises to do, because with really heavy compound movements, you don't want your form to break down at all, ideally. A tiny bit of a breakdown, we can, get away with that. But if you're constantly having your form break down and things are falling out of place, your chances of getting injured are a lot higher. So it's better just to keep that 1 rep in reserve. If you can get that last rep but everything's clean and perfect, it's like, yep, that rep moved well, but I can't get 1 more, I just miss it. That's ideal at the end of the day as well. Because, you can use your assistant exercises and you can take a set of those to failure if you wish. You're never really going to overtrain doing it, a set of bicep curls to failure. But doing multiple heavy sets of squats to failure is a different story. Alternatively, doing multiple, sets of bicep curls to failure, it's not ideal going to failure every time, but at the same token, you're not going to burn your nervous system out doing that. You're not going to dread it. It's like, yep, I just hit failure. It's easy. Working up and doing 4 sets of squats to failure is a real mental battle, and that's something that I would not advise doing. You just don't really achieve anything out of it. You're just better off, if you're going to do that and train legs to failure, finish off using leg extensions or single-legged leg press, so you can really concentrate on each leg at a time and then take that to failure if you have to. There's not too many instances where you have to. But I hope that answers your questions. If you have more, feel free to comment below. I'm able to answer them and do it in video format again. Otherwise, have a great day wherever you are.